And we're live. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Week 10 NFL DFS. Let's talk over the DraftKings slate. Should be an interesting one. I think we got some really good plays on this slate. It's definitely a week where I got too many guys I want to play, as opposed to a week where I'm like searching out guys that I can play.
I feel like that's the theme of 2020. Like so many good plays. This week specifically, I'm with you. Like there are a lot of good plays. It was definitely hard narrowing the picks down.
Yeah, especially in the passing games. Like running back's not as deep this week, but the passing games are. I mean, there's just a lot of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the wrong button. But here we go. Let's talk this bad boy over. Have some fun with it. I do want to reiterate to a bunch of you guys out there, and it's going to be a bigger deal this week. We are doing a second video Sunday mornings. Sometimes it's going to be the exact same picks. Other times we're going to make some pivots. I got a couple of guys I picked out this weekend that potentially could have to make a little change. So if you're interested, stay tuned. We usually come up a few hours before kickoff and just kind of reiterate a few of the things that we're thinking.
Yeah, even if it's mostly the same guys, we can talk about, if we still like them as much, if we've decided to get off them, whatever it might be. So I love how we're doing the double videos. We've never really been able to do that with other sports going on. We might only have a couple more weeks of this. Well, actually, no, regular season NBA probably won't start for a while, but I'm enjoying it for sure.
All right, guys. So we've been doing a lot of promotions for the website and getting new customers lately and things like that. Again, with only one sport, we can really focusing on getting the name brand out there and everything like that. So I wanted to bring up the two big ones that we have going right now. A couple of you guys caught the video last night. We are going to be doing an NBA-only package with the DFS 5-pack. We've been asked this a couple of years. To me, it didn't usually make sense because the annual pricing that we offer, it wouldn't be substantially less for an NBA package. Now with shortened games, we'll lower the price a little bit. I think it makes a lot of sense this year. So what we are doing to promote early sign up, and it got started last night for those of you guys who caught the video, the tweets, or whatever it is, we're going to be doing tiered pricing. You buy early, you get a discount. So what we have going right now after we've completed the first tier is we're going to go through a second tier of customers. It's going to be 15 people. They can purchase the NBA package for only $60. The normal price tag's going to be a little over $100. I haven't finalized the exact price point yet. So this is like, basically a 50% discount. So we will take the next 15 customers who sign up and pay. You get it at $60, so basically half price. That covers the full season, cash and GPP videos, write-ups. Got the playoffs in there. I will make you that money on NBA playoffs alone. I promise you that much. We have a long regular season still to talk this whole thing through. I do not have it up on the website right now yet, but you can pay manually via PayPal or Venmo at the address below, and you'll be good to go. NBA is only like 40 days away, so we are getting psyched and ready to crush this thing this year. And also the NFL package, I'm going to talk to our web designer and have him lower the price on this as well because we are over halfway through the season now. It's $50. If you wanted to pay through that manually, you can. Otherwise, if you pay through the website for the NFL package, I'll just send you the $19 reimbursement based on what's on the website.
Yeah, all sounds good. I'm sure you need to take a breath after talking for so long.
I'm pretty good at talking a lot when it's about sports. Other than that, I'm usually a pretty silent individual. But when it's about sports, I can talk for a long time.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. We got a lot of good deals going on right now. And yeah, again, the NBA offers, that's going to be when, if you're thinking about it, you might as well just do it because in a couple weeks and in a couple days even, it's going to be, almost double the price.
Yeah, we went through the first tier of pricing last night in one night. So I don't know how long the second one will take. But again, by the start of the season starts, it'll be over $100 for the full NBA package. And $60 is it's a massive discount.
And I'm pretty hyped for NBA to start.
Oh, man. You and me and pretty much everybody that DMs me 12 times a day going through little individual questions about DFS because we're also desperate to have sports every night.
No doubt.
All right, guys. Last things up before we get into the play. Subscribe to the station if you're new to it. If you can click the thumbs up button, it is massively appreciated. Also, I would love for the show to be a little bit more interactive. If you got somebody you like this week, throw it in the comments section. You know what? We'll even do this. What we deem to be, we'll take a vote between the two of us. Best answer for somebody you like for GPPs this weekend in the comments section. We'll send you the write-up for free.
Best answer. All right, well, we'll just decide. That could mean so many different things, but again, if we gave away what it would mean, then it would be easy to answer. So throw your
subjective.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys, click the thumbs up. Let's roll. Let's talk about quarterbacks this week. I always feel like this picture of Jared Goff, he looks like a poor man's Ryan Gosling, but that doesn't really influence his DFS score at all whatsoever. So I knew I liked him. I don't watch a lot of other DFS videos, but it was like the first guy that he brought up. And then when you came in yesterday, you kept dropping hints on the members only video about who you liked. And we came to the same conclusion, and that is just, sign up with Jared Goff this week. There's a lot of good quarterbacks, so I get the pivot. There's a lot of things to like about him, but the matchup is perfect. Seattle is the worst team against opposing quarterbacks for DFS. The list of quarterbacks who have feasted against Seattle is everyone but Jimmy G. And this one also has like all of like your secondary like sports betting things, like coming off the bye week. Huge bounce back week after a pathetic performance, like everything. There's a lot of reasons to like Jared Goff.
Yeah, I mean, it's very early in the week also, and he's like not even coming in like really that high owned. None of the Rams are, which is interesting. And I think a lot of that is because they're expensive. Like when you roster the Rams, like even Goff is like cheaper than the wide receivers, but you're not rostering, obviously any other quarterback guys in his price range, like a Deshaun Watson, et cetera, who's basically in the same price range. So I think he's going to be higher owned than that. But I kind of thought looking at this slate at the beginning of the week, he was going to be chalk. I don't think that. I'm kind of with you, though. Like, I don't really care. He's in a really good spot. I mean, you look at that Miami game that he just played, maybe the worst game he's ever played in his life, still was competent, DFS-wise. I think that they've probably had a good 2 weeks of practice. They've had this game circled. I think Seattle's very fraudulent. Their defense can't stop anyone. Massive game for the Rams. I like Goff a lot here.
At home, and just to reiterate something I mentioned like 3 times yesterday, like you're not a Jared Goff guy. So the fact that you're like rock hard over this play right now that should tell you guys something. This is not a guy you're an apologist for. If anything, you're probably a Jared Goff hater. So the fact that you really like him, I think should mean something to other people because it is difficult in the world of DFS, and that's just not for you. That's for everybody. If there's somebody that you're not typically a big fan of, being a fan of them for a week is difficult. And you're a big fan of Goff this week. So, again, that should tell everybody something.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I love that point.
All right, moving on down the list. So, one of the other advantages that we now have about doing the second show on Sunday mornings is we can talk about guys we like, but if things change throughout the week, we can make the pivot Sunday morning. And that's never more evident than we want to talk about Duke Johnson right now as the running back of the Houston Texans. So, as of Wednesday, David Johnson still is in concussion protocol and has not practiced. My best bet, I don't think he's going to play. If he does play, then yes, I'm not going to be rostering Duke Johnson. In the meantime, though, this is a situation where you can probably give this little guy a few more carries than you would normally because it's probably just a 1 week type of thing where he's going to get this number. He's also a PPR monster in a game that Cleveland, the weather doesn't look to be great. So I think the short intermediate passing game is a great thing for the Texans to use on Sunday. He's a PPR monster. And while it doesn't do a ton for me, if there is a position, I don't mind it. The revenge game of a running back who can put his head down and run a little bit harder, I don't hate it in this situation. I don't think he has any bad blood towards Cleveland, but I'm sure he doesn't mind going back to Cleveland and playing in his own stopping grounds.
I think that's all it is, right? It's not like he's going back to Cleveland because he's got bad blood there, but who wouldn't? I'm sure he felt like he should have gotten a bigger role. Cleveland was awful when he was there. Now Cleveland's decent. I'm sure he's going to want to play really well here. Not that he doesn't always want to play well, but how he was
can't hurt.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm with you, man. I don't expect David Johnson to play in this game. Not practicing today. I don't know. You never know with these concussions, but it seems like he's got, a lot to do to get past that concussion protocol, and it's doubtful he's going to play Sunday, which just puts Duke Johnson in an unbelievable situation at a very good price point. If there wasn't for another running back on this slate that is going to be, even higher owned, I think that Duke Johnson would be potentially the highest owned player on the slate at only $5K. I mean, assuming David Johnson's out, I kind of expect him to catch around 5 balls.
Yeah, he'll still – okay, so, I mean, everybody knows about Mike Davis. Christian McCaffrey has now been downgraded to doubtful. So, like, the Mike Davis thing, we're not going to bring him up because, honestly, as much as I like to go through what I consider to be pretty obvious chalk like Dalvin Cook last week, who wasn't even as popular as he should have been, like Mike Davis seemed to be too easy. So we skipped him. Duke Johnson will still get plenty of love if David Johnson's out, but it will be lower than normal because of the fact that Mike Davis is going to be 195% owned.
Yeah, exactly.
So it'll still be a decent number, though, if David Johnson's out. Because running back is not as strong as normal.
No doubt.
So, okay. We see this one eye to eye. We saw the last one eye to eye. We try to pick ones we agree on for the show. Obviously, we won't always agree on everything, but we definitely both felt the same about these guys. I completely blanked on Curtis Samuel when you brought him up earlier today. I'm definitely a fan of Curtis Samuel. I was interested to see how they would use him last week with McCaffrey back. He had another big week, even with McCaffrey feasting. He is basically like the backup running back as well. I mean, he does get a few carries every game. He's good, and he's developing chemistry with Bridgewater lately.
A lot to like here at 4,900. One of my favorite plays on the slate. I don't know, it slipped my mind when we went over the members only video yesterday. I can't remember how much we talked about him, but a guy I really like this week. Look at the game log. Not even the fact that, he's crushing the past 3 games, but I love that each game he's gotten better. I know that's something that you love in all sports, and how could you not like that here? Now McCaffrey's out again, or presumably going to be out. That only helps Curtis Samuel here. Tampa, despite last week getting gashed by the Latavius Murray and Kamara, they're usually really good against the run. So definitely expect Carolina to be passing here. I mean, still under 5K. I like him a lot here. And I know that this is a guy that you really liked a couple weeks ago on a showdown slate. And I know that was a lot price dependent, but that was really his breakout game.
Yeah, he's good too, right? This is not a guy who's just, happens to be in a position where he has an easy matchup and he got a couple of lucky touchdowns. He's a talented player. They try to get him the ball. And with no Christian McCaffrey and his versatility in there, I think there's just more opportunity for him to get touches. And while we do not see the Tampa Bay side of things even close to the same, we came to the same conclusion ultimately, which is Tampa Bay is going to score some points this week. They're going to have a much better week of practice. We think they put it on Carolina a little bit. This just means that Carolina's throwing a lot. And in a PPR type of format like DraftKings, that's only good stuff for Curtis Samuel.
Amen.
All right, next up. So I also want to talk about another guy. Again, you guys know I'm mostly 2/3 cash, 1/3 GPP when it comes to NFL. This one I would label as more of a GPP play. Doesn't change the fact that I like it. Also goes back to the point that I brought up before, is that we do a second show on Sunday mornings, and this is another one that could change. We both expected Lazard to play last week. He made the flight to San Francisco, which when you've been on injured reserve for a little bit, that's a big deal that he made the flight. They weren't quite ready with it. The Packers training staff is beyond cautious and conservative. This week, 10 days off, home game against Jacksonville. I fully expect Allen Lazard to be in the lineup, and if he isn't, we'll make the pivot Sunday morning. This is also a slate with an abundance of cheap wide receivers, a lot of good wide receivers as well, so I think you can get him at a very small ownership number. We know that the Packers offense, I believe, has the highest implied game total for points and passing game. I know you sent me that graph yesterday where the Packers passing game ranks off the charts. I think Aaron Jones gets some love. I think Devontae gets some love. I think Aaron Rodgers gets a little bit of love. But I think you can get Allen Lazard at very low ownership. And prior to the injury, this was the number 2 wide receiver in Green Bay. And Aaron Rodgers loves him.
He does. And I'm a big Lazard fan. I remember, hyping him out of Iowa State. They need that second, receiver outside of Adams. And maybe he's the reason they didn't make a move or decide to, give up a higher round draft pick to get a Will Fuller, because they like Lazard a lot. Specifically, like you said, Aaron Rodgers likes him. I like him too here, man. I wish that, he had played last week and we knew he was healthy, but that's going to keep people off him. So that's kind of the gift and the curse.
And we saw Marquez Valdez-Scantling with a pair of touchdowns against San Francisco. So he's the guy on everybody's mind. I mean, I'm just guessing with the abundance of cheap wide receivers. I think you're going to get Lazard at below 5%, even at this really cheap price tag of $4K.
I agree. I think around 5%. But also, if you have David Johnson out, then you all of a sudden have Mike Davis and Duke Johnson as popular plays. You don't need that 4K receiver. So that's going to lower his ownership.
Yeah, and don't be surprised at the end of the week. Now, again, guys, in cash games, I'm playing Mike Davis. Trust me, I'm playing Mike Davis. But don't be surprised at the end of the week if you got some cheaper guys that outscore Mike Davis, because it's not a great spot for him. He just happens to be pretty good and a starting running back for 4K.
He's got a crazy high floor for being 4K.
Yeah, those PPR points are hard to ignore. But, I don't think we expect Mike Davis to kill it this week. I just think at his price tag, it's difficult not to use him.
Agreed.
So, all right, let's move on down the list. Last guy out, Michael Thomas, wide receiver. Most of you guys have probably kind of heard of him. We were talking about the top receivers in football the other day, and we went through like Hopkins and Devontae and all those guys. I'm like, well, I feel like I'm missing somebody. This was the dude. We forgot going into the year. This was the guy who had 100,000 catches last year. We just saw number one wide receiver Devontae feast all over San Francisco. Their defense isn't good because they're down like their 28 best players.
The Saints are different now. They've got Emmanuel Sanders. Obviously, they have Kamara. Well, Kamara and Aaron Jones, similar-ish. But, like, if there's any guy in the league that, like, is like Adams, I feel like it's Michael Thomas. Really good route runner, big body. They obviously do it in different ways. Adams is a better route runner. But Thomas, I remember having many conversations with you last year that he was the best receiver in football. Things changed. He's been hurt most of the year. He hasn't played. Yet last game was his first full game, and he didn't do much spectacular. But we know his upside. We saw it damn near every game last year, especially in the Dome. I think that his upside is real at 7,400. And you've talked about there's just so many good plays on this slate. You're not going to get Michael Thomas like unowned, but I don't think he's like chalky at all because there's so many good plays on this slate.
Yeah, there's a lot of wide receivers you're going to want exposure to, so it is going to keep his ownership down a little bit, no questions about it. Also, because we haven't seen it. He's got 2 combined games. I know they were both against Tampa, but his 2 combined games don't even equal a good game for him. So I do think that keeps people a little bit cautious. He'll still be double digits because he's Mike Thomas at 7,400, but I don't think he's like overwhelming chalk. And actually, just the comparison you were making, I really do find the Saints and Packers offense to be very similar now in the way that they're set up. If you look at like the running backs, yeah, Kamara's a little better than Aaron Jones, but they have a similar type of game, right? You don't want to give them much more than 10 to 15 carries. They're viable in the passing game. They're very explosive. They have a nose for the end zone. Meanwhile, I think Latavius Murray and Jamal Williams are pretty even. You got aging quarterbacks. You got elite number 1 wide receivers that they run the offense through. I think Lazard and MVS are pretty similar, like Traquan Smith and Emmanuel Sanders. Sanders has had a longer, better career than Lazard, but he's older. Lazard's on the rise. Robert Tonyan's emerging, and Jared Cook's a little bit older, but they're both solid tight ends, but not spectacular. And the defenses look good one week and look bad the others. I think these 2 teams are very close.
Yeah, so do I. The one thing you didn't say in there though is that Rodgers is better than Breeze. Like Breeze is a surefire Hall of Famer, and I love Drew Brees and have ultimate respect for Drew Brees, but especially if we're talking right now, I mean, Rodgers is better than Brees.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think Kamara's a little better than Jones.
Yes, I agree.
I think they're close. I think the Packers' offensive line is better.
Okay.
But I think the Saints' defense, when it comes to play, and it's at full strength, I think it's better than the Packers. So I think these teams are close, real close.
So who's better, Adams or Thomas?
Did I lose you for a sec?
Yeah, I asked you who's better, Thomas or Adams?
All right, you back now?
Yeah, wow. I've asked twice now, so it seems like they don't want the gods don't want me to ask you this. Who do you think's better, Thomas or Adams?
I think they're so similar. I think their skill set is almost the same. That's a tough question because I think they both make their hay with their amazing route running. Like when you watch a guy like Hopkins has just got the best hands and the best contested catch skills I've ever seen. I used to think Chris Carter had the best hands, but like Hopkins, if I have to throw to a guy that's covered, that's the guy I want. Julio is a freak of nature in every sense, but like Thomas and Devontae, they run their routes so crisply, and purely. They're like almost perfect with route running. Oh man, that's a tough one. I'm gonna still give it to Thomas, just because you can't lose your spot because of injury. But it's really close.
Man, I'll say this: like as a Packers fan, I was not expecting that. Only because like I have heard all week, the past 2 weeks, about how Devontae Adams is the best receiver in football, and I know he said that. He said that he's the best receiver in football, and like Julio said that he's the best receiver in football. Not like digging at each other, but then like Hopkins, saw a comment on it, like saw an ESPN post about it on Instagram and commented, "Ha ha." So like, there's been a lot of discussion about who the top receiver is.
And honestly, I don't know that at any point of our lives, because when you were a kid, or at least when I was a kid, I'm a few years older than you, it was Jerry Rice. It was Jerry Rice forever. And then, he was getting older and Randy Moss came into the league. And for me, it was Randy Moss. the freak of freaks. Is he better than Terrell Owens? Hell yes, he's better than Terrell Owens. Like, I don't even think that competition's close. But right now, I mean, and the guy who doesn't really get brought up a lot in that group is Tyreek Hill. But quite honestly, if you ask defensive coordinators who they fear Tyreek Hill.
So I always hear when like people talk about this that like, oh, well, Tyreek Hill is just in his own class. Like he's just his own guy. Like, what does that mean exactly? Like, I think
it's an excuse not to bring him up.
Right? Like, you know what I mean? Because I don't disagree with you. He's another one. You mentioned Mahomes without Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. I'd really be interested to see Kelsey Tyreek Hill without Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid point. If he was with another deep ball thrower that scared defensive coordinators and they had to drop back into cover 2 constantly, like I think like they could get the job done. It wouldn't be the same though because it's Mahomes, right? Right before I got out of the shower before we hopped on here, I was listening to Skip and Shannon. Pro Football Focus came out this year and ranked Tom Brady as having a better season than Patrick Mahomes. And like just even listening to like Skip Bayless do the mental gymnastics of trying to like validate that. And it's like, no, dude, no, not even close. I don't even know. Like you lose your credibility when you come out with stuff like this.
Yeah, you do.
Yes. And that's Shannon's like, so you're telling me that Tom Brady's got 3 bad games this year, like bad games. And you're telling me that he's having a better season than Mahomes. Come on.
Doesn't even make any sense.
Mahomes has 1 pick and they're like, well, he has more like turnover-esque plays. I forget the term that they use. And it's like, dude, come on. He's got 1 pick and it was the end of the half desperation heave.
Who was Shannon Sharp saying like losing credibility to Skip?
Pro Football Focus.
I agree with that, like for sure.
Yeah, so it's a great website. I think we all love Pro Football Focus. We're a bunch of stat nerds around here in the whole DFS community. Not me and you, but everybody listening. But sometimes there has to be some value attached to what happened. And we've talked about this with like starting pitchers in baseball. The win-loss thing doesn't mean a lot, but ERA does mean something. They're like, well, you gave up a lot of balls in play and this, and this. I'm like, yeah, but he buckled down and he got guys out when it mattered, right? Like there still has to be some value in how many runs that you allow because some guys, when the pressure's on and they get 2 guys on to start an inning, they buckle down and make outs. Other guys fold and give up big innings and lose their games.
Yeah, I'm with you, man.
So I don't know. I love talking stats. They can be both under and overappreciated, which is the fun part about it. And it's probably what gets all of us super excited about DFS.
There are people very hard-headed about the opposite about how you feel about that. And I would love to hear a conversation with you and someone else like on the opposite side of that.
Like when you say the opposite side, what do you mean exactly?
Like saying that like, okay, that like ERA doesn't matter at all because like you said, like that stuff that you mentioned about like, oh, you know, they gave up hard hit balls. Like that's all that really matters. And that you can't really put numbers on what you talked about with like, you know, guys not performing well. I'm just saying what the argument would be.
For me, with ERA, over like 1 game, it won't mean a lot to me. But if you're telling me like Kyle Hendricks is now not 10 years into his career, he's going to regress because he doesn't throw it hard enough. Okay, so he's 10 years into his career and he still doesn't give up a ton of earned runs. Like, let's just say he's a good pitcher. Maybe we don't love him for DFS because he doesn't K guys, but like he's been a good pitcher for a long time. And I know maybe he doesn't meet your quota because he doesn't throw hard enough, doesn't get enough swings and misses, but the dude makes outs every single year.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yes, I agree with you. And I, hear people especially when like something like BVP is brought up. And we're not like BVP like end all be alls, but it means something because the guys are human beings. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people, highly respected people, that think it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I do think it's a stat I've used a lot, and I think it works, but you have to know where to use it. There are slates, like full 15-game MLB slates, where there's not a BVP that matters in the entire day. Where it matters to me is when you take a look at Evan Longoria against CC Sabathia, and dude's 40 of 100 off of him with 9 home runs. Like, clearly he flat out owns him. Like that, and we also know he's good against lefties, and and et cetera, et cetera. You don't just pick out a guy who's 4 for 8 off somebody, be like, that's great. Well, for all you know, he has 2 bloopers. It's got to be a bigger sample size.
For sure. I mean, yes, I agree.
So, man, we could talk stats all day long, but Got to get my kids working on their school and stuff like that. So to wrap it up, we like the Rams passing game. If you can't tell, we think there's a lot of good wide receivers this week. We'll be back on Sunday for final breakdowns. That NBA package, like I said, we did the first tier in one night. We'll do the second tier. $60 is basically 50% off. The PayPal and the Venmo address are below. Send it in there manually and reserve one of those 15 spots because I'm psyched for NBA. And just in the NBA playoffs alone, which will be included, we'll have some big money coming in then. Not that we're not going to do the regular season the right way, but just saying, like, let's do this thing.
Yeah, man, I'm hyped.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Click the thumbs up button and have a great day.
Thank you.